ISIS went on a killing spree in Syria on Wednesday. The Assad mob unleashed chemical weapons on civilians on Tuesday. And on Thursday night, the United States attacked the Syrian airbase with Tomahawk missiles. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is with us on The Roy Green Show, and he spent a lot of time with us over the last 10 years. Emigrated to the United States from Syria as a child. Former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and author of Battle for the Soul of Islam. Dr. Jasser blames much of the violence in Syria on U.S. lack of decisiveness. Dr. Jasser, it's been a terrible week in your former home country, where as a child, with ISIS on Wednesday, and Assad on Tuesday. Which of the two do you want to address first?
Well, I think most importantly, we need to address Assad. And, the thing is while we're paying attention to it this week because we finally had American action, it's just another week. Actually, today, as you and I speak, the Assad regime has actually stepped up operations in Idlib and has begun air operations and bombing operations at full course, if not heavier than it's ever been in the last few weeks. We knew Idlib was the next town they were coming to. They warned as the activities in Aleppo started to shut down and the city had been taken back by the regime after the months and months of horrific genocidal operations there. They said they were next going to Idlib, and that's what they did. But I think the most important thing about the response from the U.S. government has been that finally he will blink in the future when he does something. And for all those who felt that Syrian policy, whatever that's going to be, from the Trump administration was going to tilt towards Russia and Assad, I think reassuringly many of us in the Syrian American community are thinking, wow, maybe that's not going to happen. The needle now is tilting away from Russia and Syria.
Assad is using the very same air base, is he not, for the attacks today that was attacked by the Tomahawk missiles?
Yeah. I mean, we sent out 57, 58 missiles, and I heard that it not only got that depot, the chemical weapons depot, but I thought that airbase had been demolished in addition to some other networking connectivity, arteries, if you will, for Hezbollah, which was also a victory. But he seems to have other mechanisms of operating in that town. Homs had become a stronghold for the Syrian regime, and they are using that and surrounding areas to launch operations. The Russians are still helping them. I mean, the story this week that many missed was that the Russians, we believe, were actually helping them load the chemical ordinances. So there were some Russian soldiers, even though the Russian leadership denied it, there were some Russian soldiers involved again in these war crimes, as we've always known, with other operations, the use of barrel bombs and other things that all violate international law. So there's a lot more to come, but at least for the first time, a military moral force of good, which is the American military, did something against the Assad regime for the first time in 6 years.
Zuhdi, clearly Assad is trying to do something, create some dynamic. And now he's already been attacked by President Trump. Probably felt that nothing was going to happen because Barack Obama was the ditherer in chief for 8 years. But what might his motivation be to use that very same air base, 2 days after it's attacked?
I think because the signal from the Trump administration is that as long as you don't use chemical weapons, you're not going to see much happen afterwards. Ambassador Haley got a note from another European ambassador who will remain nameless, I guess, but saying thank you for finally exerting some American leadership in what we've been trying to do against Assad. And, I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure if much is going to change as far as how unleashed the Assad regime is to try to finally end this revolution, which will not end until either he has been destroyed or half, if not more, of the Syrian population, which is already displaced, which half a million are dead. This revolution will continue. It will not just go away. I think the key is to develop some type of Trump doctrine or strategy that involves And I've laid out a 4-point strategy. Number one, get Iran and Russia out of there, which I know is difficult, but that's the only way it'll return it to a civil war. 2 is to get Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey's radicalization of the Sunni part of it out of there. 3 is to begin to have some no-fly zones to help humanitarian areas and also help the moderates organize. And then 4th is then you see the Assad regime need to be escorted out and defeated.
Yeah. And at the same time, ISIS continues to operate, and I know you had concerns because they killed a significant number of people, and there's no idea who these people are.
Oh, exactly. I mean, they will continue to try to do the most grotesque, barbaric acts and in fact, recruit more jihadis. And, you know, I folks like Senator Paul and others that said, well, what President Trump did, we were not attacked. They had the bizarre statements that somehow America wasn't attacked, that we need to get congressional declaration of war. Listen, if you look upon the refugees into Europe as being a threat, ISIS is a threat. All of this will not go away with Assad still in power. So this is all connected. You cannot have an ISIS strategy just to kill ISIS. Assad is the main reason that ISIS exists. These atrocities will continue from both sides of this evil coin in Syria.
You still have family there, right?
I do. A lot of family in Aleppo, some in Damascus. We hear from them. Aleppo now, the access to water and food has returned. So some of the humanitarian issues have decreased. It's still horrific. The buildings are awash with destruction, and it is just abysmal. But it will not solve with the Assad regime there. And ISIS is feeling squeezed in Iraq finally, as we have a Secretary of Defense that's actually being given leeway. And I'll tell you, for the first time, the reason this operation happened in Homs is that we have a president that won't reject recommendations from his military. Yeah. And I think that's what happened, is President Trump received a recommendation that inaction in Idlib will be more harmful to national and global security than action. So he allowed them to move forward.
Zuhdi, thank you for the time. It's always good talking to you. Thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Anytime.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and author of Battle for the Soul of Islam.